Welcome back. It's Wednesday in the morning. I got myself a coffee and some warm socks because for some reason it's really cold over here. And yeah, let's do some coding. So, the first thing I'm going to do today is adding an autoloader script that we use to basically create global variables that we can access from anywhere in our script. And I know what the more experienced coders among you are going to say, but garlic. Autoloader variables create racing conditions and are a bad design practice in general. To which I respond, yes, but I don't care because it's so very convenient. And I'm an amateur programmer creating a game that will probably never get sold anyway, so I'm allowed to do that without a senior dev looking over my shoulder and telling me to please go back playing Legos in the water cooler room. Alright, the next step is making the customer element and the servant element individual scenes, so we can make them custom classes that we can dynamically create with code and assign properties to. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering why you're not seeing any pop-up or context menus, then this is because I'm using the Windows setting of OBS and the Windows setting doesn't catch that. I'm afraid to use the screen setting because I have lots of degenerate stuff on my desktop that I don't want you to see. And I'm currently in the process of getting a second screen so that I can put Godot on the second screen and use the proper setting of OBS. But this is something for a future video. Okay, now we can attach scripts to our individual scenes to make them proper classes. Let's call the customer element creativity. Woo! And let's call the servant element servant element. And with that, we have our custom classes that we can fill with life. Alright, now that we have defined these classes, we can delete the elements because we can now create them dynamically. And we attach a script to the servant bar so that we can do so. So let's do a quick test on this. First, we want to create a reference to the servant bar grid node. So we create an export that we call grid of type hbox container so that we have IntelliSense help for this variable. If you're new to Godot, always static type your exports so that you have the correct context help from IntelliSense. It's a bit of a quirk of Godot that you only have IntelliSense if you static type your variables. So now we have this up here that we can put the node in, and now we have the proper reference to this node. Next, we are going to create a servant element scene for the preset, and we preload the servant element so that we can instantiate it properly, and we do so in the ready function. I am going to add another variable that we call test servant that I will instantiate. And now the last thing we have to do is attach this instantiated node to the grid. So let's add child. Test servant. And with that, when we press the play button, we should see the servant element on screen. And as you can see on screen right now, the servant element properly shows up, so we did everything correctly. Next, I'm going to add a list to our servant bar so that we can reference multiple instances of the servant element and use them at a later point. And maybe populate it with a few dummies just to see if they properly align. Okay, let's add the list. First, I'm going to add the static type here that I forgot the last time I did it. Next, we create a list of servants of type control. Let's not forget initializing the array. And now we append to the servants array our servant element. And we can reference the first entry of that array. And now we should see the same that we did on our last test. And we do. Awesome. And we can now bulk create multiple of these servants. And they should all properly align when testing this. And this is how it looks in game. Great! So this is the part where I'll do a quick coffee break and read some comments from YouTube, as promised on my last video. The first comment is from Damon Lemon, and he says, "The UI looks good, but maybe a bit convoluted. I think that maybe the client section should highlight the selected client, while the others are displayed as smaller and dim, so you can focus on one client at a time, while also still having the main information about others, like a roulette." That's a fantastic idea. I'm definitely going to try this out and see if it looks good. And yes, I agree that the current mock-up looks a bit cluttered, with elements being a bit too big, and this could solve this issue very elegantly. Thanks for your feedback. The second comment is from Onyx Idol. He says that I should set up version control for peace of mind. Okay, this is a bit embarrassing, but I admit here that I never used GitHub before, other than for downloading stuff, and I simply never worked on team projects before, so I always resorted to regular safety copies on my hard drive as version control. All the indie projects that I was working on that I didn't solo develop, I mainly contributed as an artist and not as a coder, so I'm gonna read into setting up the Git app on my machine. It's definitely on my to-do list. Also, he compliments how I'm able to hide my Saxonian accent. Apparently, it's not as noticeable as I thought. By the way, I totally noticed that spike of viewership numbers on that closing section of my last video. Apparently, me talking German is weirdly appealing to my audience. I'm not sure what to do with this information, but I'll leave it here. The third comment is from John McClain, 4430, and he suggests some kind of auto-battler for the game. I mean, I could imagine an auto-matching feature that basically assigns servants by a maximized profit, but there will be some other considerations other than profit when assigning servants, so this would be just for convenience in those situations where income is all you want. Alright, that's all for this section. Back to the game. So for the next part of this video, we will create two new classes, one for the servant and one for the traits. So I'm going to add a new node. Let's call it servant. We make it a scene and we attach a script to it. And we call this the servant. And now we can delete this node because we no longer need it. And we do the same for the traits. So again, let's add a node. Let's call it trait. Make it a scene. Attach a script. And we can delete it. So now we got the servant script, and we got the trait script, and we forgot to apply a class name. And now we can talk about what these two classes are meant to do. So let's talk real quick about the two classes we just created. The first one is the servant class, which will hold all the dynamic properties, stats, and the trait list of each servant. And it will reference the following other classes. One is the servant element that you already know, because this is the node that is going to be attached to the servant bar on the UI. The servant actor, which is a node holding the animated model of the servant. So, like you can see on screen right now. And the servant template will be a node holding all the static data of the servant, like default stats and references to files for character events, art, sound files, etc. The trait class will be the parent class holding all the general trait properties like name, description, etc. And in case of functional traits, this will also hold a subnode with a script attached to it called trait effect that will have all the required function to make the trait work. But since it's already been way over 10 minutes, I'm going to make a cut here and hope to see you again in the next video. And I wish you a wonderful day. And to all my German viewers out there, because apparently there are quite a few of you, I'm just going to say Tschüss und auf Wiedersehen, euer unanständiger Knoblauch.